we're on the determination. There's an amendment from Councillor Blake. I will be moving the recommendation, seconded by the Vice Convener, Councillor Blake. Your seconder is Councillor Grant. Okay, let me just get my paperwork together. Yeah, so as mentioned, this is the latest stage of work that was instructed by committee as part of the school estate plan to review the capacities, the school estate in the Bucksburn and Dice secondary schools. So we're at this stage where there's been a feasibility study. We've got an outlined business case. There are still details and further research to be carried out. The next logical step is to have that conversation with officials in Aberdeenshire. We do not have a preferred option on how we proceed with rebalancing Dice and or Bucksburn. We want to go in with an open conversation. We want to explore all the options that are available. We have not decided. We have not made a decision on catchment areas or on rezoning. We want to have that free and broad and open conversation. So I think that in the recommendations and through the report, we have a very secure and intact process for engaging with Aberdeenshire Council officials. It will be an open conversation, and there's mention in the Labour. Well, the only change in the Labour amendment is to add in on a without prejudice basis. But I would absolutely argue that the discussion is already without prejudice. It is open. It is an open conversation, and without any presuppositions about what comes out. So happy to move the recommendations, and I'll pass over to the Vice Convener. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. I think I'll reiterate your points and reflect on what the recommendations are asking, which is very early instruction for our officers to open the dialogue with Aberdeenshire Council. So it's important we don't get ahead of ourselves in committee in terms of preempting any decisions. Let's have that conversation, and once there's more clarity, the next steps can be discussed and explored at committee level with the information that we need to make any of those decisions. In terms of the amendment itself, I'm uncomfortable with the on a without prejudice basis in capital letters as well. I don't think those words are necessary. It's already on a no prejudice basis, and I think we need to be careful, and we've had quite a lot of talk on different reports in committee earlier on how important language is and how we use language, because what we don't want to unintentionally do is create a risk where public trust in our staff and our processes is undermined. I don't think that's conducive to the culture we have created in this committee. And talking of culture, we talk a lot about culture in our schools and how that transforms outcomes within our schools. And we also had comments earlier from Councillor Malik around leadership. Well, I would say we are all leaders in this committee, and I think it's important that we lead by example in committee with a culture that is healthy, forward-thinking and transformative, and that comes with using the right language. And I have every faith that this committee and this council can lead on transformative change for education, because we're already doing it. So I would caution that we don't erode that by adding unnecessary words with what I would describe as distrustful undertones, which is why I'll be supporting the recommendations as they stand, and I'd urge committee to extend that gesture of respect to the work of our officers and support the recommendations as they are also. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Over to Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Convener, and thank you to Mr. Jones and the other officers for preparing this report. I'm going to have to start by disagreeing with you because it is clear that you do have a preferred option, and it says notes, and I'm going to read the first line. It says notes the preferred option for ensuring appropriate future provision of secondary education at Dyson Bucksburn, as detailed within the outline business case at Appendix A of this report. So I don't really understand why you're now saying that the partnership doesn't have a preferred option. I understand that what we're saying is that we're noting, not agreeing, but it does quite clearly say there's a preferred option. And actually, the major change that we made in our amendment is we agree that there is no preferred option, which is actually what you've just said. So it was the first line, is that we said that there was no preferred option. So I am also going to talk about one of my favourite topics, the school roll forecast. What we can see now is obviously that Bucksburn Academy is bursting at the seams, and though the permanent extension, which will open in 2027, 2028, will alleviate the pressure, we are showing in the school roll forecast that we'll be back over capacity by 2030. The school roll forecast also says that Dyson Academy is also at capacity and is predicted to be over capacity by 2030. We know there are 3 key feeder schools to Bucksburn. King's Wells will obviously be moving to Hazelhead Academy in 2027 or 2028. And we know that both Brimond and Stonywood have capacity issues. And the report clearly highlights the new builds at New Hills and Greenfern and Landwidge, and the stress that that's going to put on the capacity at Bucksburn. And the housing audit doesn't totally back this up, it has to be said. I have to say that in February 24, this committee decided there was no immediate need to proceed with the business case for a new primary school in the New Hills area, which would really relieve the pressure on Brimond. And that was because the houses weren't being built at the rate to justify having a new school. So comparing the length of time that it takes to build a new primary school in comparison to how long it takes to rezone, then I am concerned that we are proposing to move ahead with this while holding back a new build. I think it might be a bit premature, the decision that we're making before. I understand, going back to your own words again, about that if there's no preferred option, that's okay. But I think otherwise, then the decision regarding rezoning might be a bit premature. The feasibility study was obviously conducted a year ago, and parents at the school that cannot be named are clearly anxious that their children will be going from a 10-minute walk to school to potentially a bus to school. I get parents get concerned, I get parents get anxious when there's any changes, and I really appreciate that Mr. Jones addressed that he will be looking to how we can alleviate that. I do agree with you, it's very much collegiate to open up the conversation with the neighbouring council about any potential changes to the rezoning of Dyce Academy. We can see from their Aberdeenshire Council school roll forecast, and this is a new area for me as I've never really looked at Aberdeenshire school roll forecast before, but what a pleasure. That Meldrum Academy, which would be the closest one, is predicted to be 101% capacity. Kemney Academy is at 133% capacity, and that essentially leaves Inverurie Academy as the only one within easy reach with space, as it's predicted to be at 78% capacity. So that's about 300 pupils below their planning capacity. And obviously Aberdeenshire Council, as we know, has been more focused on mothballing and closing primaries and nurseries, but they do seem to have a project aligned for rezoning, secondary provision. And so I think it's really important that we do work in lockstep with them. I can imagine that they may be more inclined to be looking at the boundary between Kemney and Inverurie, but I think it's really important that we work closely with them. So essentially our view at this time is we should not be saying there's a preferred option, and that we should take forward the collegiate conversation with Aberdeenshire Council to open that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Grant.
Thank you very much, Convener. And as always, I'll be far less eloquent than Councillor Blake, but I did say earlier that language is important, and that seems to have been agreed by the Convener and Vice Convener. Language is important, and there are differences within what Councillor Blake has proposed, or there's one important, if small difference, which is that at this stage, in order to ensure confidence in the process, and this is not easy work to do, and I'm not in any way simplifying just how tricky this is to get it right for officers to push forward on this for our communities. But the reality is that the next step should be having that engagement and then reporting on whether, as a result of that engagement, an option is preferable or even feasible and practical. So what Councillor Blake has proposed is actually not misaligned from what you've just said, Convener, but actually is very much in agreement with it. The recommendations as they are proposed notes that there is a preferred option and that engagement should happen in relation to rezoning options for Aberdeenshire with Aberdeenshire Council to report back and presumably report back on how that preferred option could be made feasible. The concern then is that we risk not keeping the communities on side between now and the report coming back in 2 committee cycles. So whilst it's only a small change within the proposed wording of the amendment, it is an important one, and it would ensure that there will be confidence in the process. No one's questioning anything about the intent of officers and the hard work that they've done, not at all. But language matters, and this is an important, and it will be a very emotive issue for a lot of people within Bucksburn and Dice. So that's the place that we come from within the amendment, and it comes with good faith, and it comes in a way that would ensure that the committee can proceed in 2 cycles' time with the information that we need before a preferred option is set out and determined. So that's why I think it's right that all members of the committee should support Councillor Blake's amendment.
Thank you very much. Anyone wishing to contribute to the debate? Or we can just go Councillor Malik.
Thank you very much, Convener. It must be a first for this council to put forward a report which agrees none of the options on the offer meet the requirement of the action plan to deal with the school estate plan agreed in September 2022. It does appear to me, Convener, that this administration has shown that they are politically scared of their own shadow by refusing to endorse any of the options available to us. Convener, the administration has approved a school estate plan, and with that plan comes some hard decision. But this SNP-led administration, well, it's SNP administration because Lib Dems not visible apart one councillor for the last few months. Yes, one councillor is. Has always run away from the hard decisions. Sorry. Labour is moving. Yeah, of course, you interrupt. And standing order? Standing order?
Do you have a standing
order?
What's the standing order?
So do not interrupt then.
Children's education.
No.
Okay, let's
hear the fact. Do not run away. This is the SNP pilot. Sit here and listen to me and then come back to me.
Could members please stop
fighting.
talking? Could everybody please stop talking? Now, Councillor Malik, continue.
Yes, Convener, I would get opportunity to speak, and this is happening again and again each committee. Without actually raising the standing order, councillors are just interfering without any reason because they cannot have a political debate. This is not politics at all. I'm telling you fact and figure. And then Councillor they just try to just blame other, like this is SNP politics. So Labour is moving our amendment will agree to the Chief Officer Education and lifelong learning to consult with the Aberdeenshire Council on a without prejudice basis to ensure that our position on what is offered when the final report comes back is done on the basis of accepting. We no longer accept people from the Aberdeenshire, as well as accepting that we continue with the status quo. We must understand unintended consequences of our action, including the impact of Aberdeenshire Council decide to ask us to remove children from their school catchment area. Consider in a tight community such as ours, it is often best that we work with the neighboring authorities. However, the ask here is to cut off all ties with the Aberdeenshire Council. Councillor Manny is not here, and she accused me that there is no leadership. We do not require leadership. That's very strange. Must be a leader here. Somebody has to show us a leadership. Well, no, it is acceptable because I can give you example. I'm a captain of Bonacard Cricket Club for many years, for a record 22 years. I cannot allow other 10 to just intervene. I have to give them direction. We have a lack of leadership, and this is the reason that we are actually facing legal challenges. And when we move over amendment, this is easy option for a SNP. Oh, as a Labour for a cheap political point scoring. No, listen to us. Fact, you are creating panic and uncertainty in the community. And this is the reason that people are taking you to the court, and you're facing more time in the court of session than working here and delivering for our citizen. So, and supporting our amendment, I say to this committee, once again, be careful what you wish for, because what you wish for in this scenario could very well be repeated by Aberdeenshire Council elsewhere to detriment of the council. And then you need to ask yourself, was it worth it is in the long run? So please support Councillor Blake amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Radley.
Thank you, convener, and I will keep my comments quite short. Just in terms of the paper that's in front of us, because I think that's what we all need to focus on here. We have obviously got some issues with capacity at the school, Bucksburn. We have some solutions potentially in front of us, and there's a preferred option from officers that has been presented to us today. I think it's only right that we let officers then go have a conversation with the Shire, figure out how we can potentially come to an agreement on this and the report back, and then we make the decision at a future date. I am flummoxed by some of the things that have been said from across the chamber committee room. It's quite clear to me that this is an officer preferred option that will then come to us for a decision once they've had the chance to have that conversation. So I'm very happy to support you today, convener, and look forward to the outcome of them discussions. I'm really quite confused by what's going on over here. I thought this paper was quite clear. There are concerns, obviously, from some of the schools. There are concerns from some of the parents, but we need to let officers go and have that conversation and come back, and we'll make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Allah.
Yeah, thank you very much, Convener. This is a routine exercise. We had routine exercise, similar routine exercise before, and we'll have routine exercise in the future. The word premature was used. I think it's very premature to debate something without knowing what the result is going to be. We want to hear what the conversation is going to be. We want to see the outcome, and then we can have a debate and we can talk about it. So it's very premature indeed. I do not understand why we're having this debate today.
Councillor Fairfield.
Yeah, thank you, convener. I'm in complete agreement with my colleagues that there is a paper in front of us, and I think it's important that we focus on that. So maybe helpful to Councillor Malik, you might want, if Mr. Jones is happy to explain the paper to you, maybe on an outside basis to help you understand, because your
Please do not talk across the table.
I'm just sorry, through you, convener. I'm just worried that his concerns seem to, if these are genuine concerns, I think they do need to be addressed. They're completely off topic, and yeah, I think it's important that you know, as a representative, that he understands the paper. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that was Dr. Murray.
Yes, thank you, convener. It was just, I think it's a point that we must, for reassuring parents involved at these schools, is that a public consultation must take place at a formative stage. And so while we may have a preferred option, we've got to be careful that we will not be making a decision until after the public consultation, and that only a preferred option can exist. We cannot have a decision until after that point, and that might reassure parents that their views will have to be taken into consideration.
Councillor McGregor.
Thanks, convener. I think people imagine that they know what is going to happen in the future, and sometimes it doesn't. I know that all the houses that were built in the last 10 years, that were, some of them were thought were going to be big executive houses with room for children, and the market changed, and a lot of the developers decided they would rather instead have flats that were single people, and some of the children that were imagined would be coming from these imagined houses didn't come. Equally, I think in Dice, there were a lot of people there moved into family homes when they were new, and a lot of these people are still there. And the children have moved away, and they've married and had their own families elsewhere. And while Dice is a very popular and much loved school, quite a lot of the pupils are not from the city at all. I think there's 3 buses come down to the city, to Dice each day. So we think we know what's going to happen, and we don't. There's great swathes of Bucksburn hinterland are zoned for housing, but whether that happens, who can say? And what will be the result of whatever is built there and whoever acquires them? We don't know. I think it's important that officers make proper provision for catering for livelihoods, and that's what they're doing. There's nothing inevitable about a conversation with officers in the Shire. I think it's only a wise and sensible thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Councillor Blake, to sum up.
Thank you, convener, and I'm going to keep this short. But essentially what we're asking for is that at this stage, there is no preferred option. That was the first line. The report is very clear that with 3 options in the outline business case, and the report has made clear that there is a preferred option. And obviously some of the questioning, we can see that the preferred option has changed. The preferred option, what could be recommended, was changed as part of the changing of what the objectives are. Now, I absolutely accept there will be statutory consultation for the rezoning, and decisions will be made after that. But I do not understand, well, at this stage, why we would not say that there is no preferred option. I believe that will give parents and stakeholders much more, they will be much less anxious if we are saying that there is no preferred option at this stage. So I think we're all in agreement with that the need to consult with Aberdeenshire Council. There's very little, we all believe that is an important thing to do, and we want officers to open up a collegiate conversation about the boundaries. I think we all recognise that we have issues with overcapacity. Shire has issues with overcapacity, so that should be an interesting conversation. But it's important that that happens, and that is the other element of what we're asking for, which is very similar to essentially what you have asked for. So primarily the change that I am asking for is that at this stage, we make clear that there is no preferred option, rather than saying that we have a preference to, we have a particular preference which would lead to the potential rezoning of the school that cannot be made. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to repeat, it is factual that the committee doesn't have a preferred option. So I think it's very helpful that officers and staff have been working very hard on the research. They've gathered a lot of information, and we have that. We have their thoughts, their conclusions, and it's right for us to support them and encourage them as they move into the next step of discussing with Aberdeenshire colleagues. This will be a very important decision-making process. And as we move forward, I think that consultation with parents and families is absolutely going to be will have to be at the heart of what we do as we explore the future of the catchment areas for Dice and Bucksburn Academy. We're not at that point yet. There is still a lot of dialogue to go on, and that's why we have to agree a next step of engagement. This is one aspect of the school estate plan that is now being actioned, and the school estate plan, which this Liberal Democrat SNP partnership introduced, is a key area of demonstrating leadership, which we sadly inherited crumbling school estates and no strategic vision for improving school settings right across the city. So that's part of that commitment. That's part of that courageous and important action to analyse what the conditions, what the situation of buildings are around the city. And also, in the meantime, we also have to do the analysis, do the research on the changing demographics, the population changes. So clearly, that's a very dynamic context in which we have to consider each element of the school estate plan. Dice and Bucksburn are no different from anywhere else. There will be developments, there will be housing proposals coming forward in the future, which we will have to react to in terms of the school estate. We have to make sure that we rebalance schools so that they correspond with the demands from school-age populations as they ebb and flow, as they grow and diminish wherever they are around the city. So I think that linking up with Aberdeenshire Council, I think that's the correct professional way to go ahead. I think the language that we use is very important. We are using the same language as in the other catchment area processes. I think it's important that people have confidence that we're using language with integrity and seriously, and that there are no presuppositions about what we're aiming to do. Information gathering has been essential in all of this. So we do not have a premature view about where we are ultimately going. So it's important not to get ahead of ourselves, which is being suggested by the Labour amendment. We have to continue with this process calmly. We have to provide reassurance to pupils, schools, families and communities, and that means adopting and making sure that we have that that professional attitude of trust, and that's why I am moving the recommendations. I'm worried about the potential for scaremongering. I'm worried about the potential of creating panic and anxiety, which is the opposite of what the recommendations and what I am aiming to do. That's the opposite of leadership when you make people feel anxious about the children's education. We're here to provide reassurance, build trust, make sure that parents and families know that they are essential partners with the council, looking after the future of their children's education, care and well-being. So I urge the committee to support the recommendations so that we can go ahead in a professional, calm and appropriate way. Thank you. Vote.
Thank you, Convener. The committee has before it a motion in the name of the convener and an amendment in the name of Councillor Blake. Would members please vote motion, amendment or no vote? Convener?
Motion.
Vice Convener?
Motion.
Councillor Allard?
Motion.
Councillor Blake?
Amendment.
Councillor Cameron?
Motion.
Councillor Fairful?
Motion.
Councillor Farker is offline now. Councillor Grant?
Amendment.
Councillor McGregor?
Motion.
Councillor Malik?
Amendment.
Councillor MacLeod?
No vote.
Councillor McCrae?
Motion.
Councillor Radley?
Motion.
Ms Barclay?
Motion.
Mr Haywood?
No vote.
Ms Munro?
No vote.
Dr Murray?
Motion.
And Mrs Smith? She is online, I don't. Mrs Smith, sorry, can you hear me okay?
Chat on.
Let me just, sorry, let me just double check.
Motion.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you,
Did
Mrs
you hear
Smith.
me?
No apologies.
We do now.
We heard you now.
Thank you.
Convener, thank you. That's 11 votes for the motion, 3 for the amendment with 3 abstentions. Motion carries. Thank you.
We can move on to 10.8 ABZ Campus. Any questions on ABZ Campus? Councillor Radley.
Thank you, convener. I have a comment and then I've got a question, if that's okay. I would just like to thank officers for the paper in front of us today. I think it's a really good update, and I'm really pleased to see all 11 schools fully align their structure to make sure that everyone can take full advantage of the opportunity that comes through ABZ Campus. I guess my question is around sort of the pupil voice and how can pupils feed into the establishments of courses through ABZ Campus? How do they help to shape what courses are available? How do they feed into that process?
Thank you. Mr Jones.
Thank you, convener. Thank you for the question. So young people were surveyed by colleagues from Skills Development Scotland right at the beginning of the ABZ Campus process, which resulted in a new portal for applications, a simplified and consistent, hopefully consistent course guide for the need for snippets of videos to help them understand courses. And so the voice of the young person has been part of this right from the start. And at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is provide them with a greater range of qualifications as part of the collective. They continue to be part of our thinking and planning going forward. And as part of the report, there's a really pleasing, although we'd like everyone to be completely satisfied all the time, but there's a really pleasing reflection from young people on how they feel the courses have gone when they have chosen ABZ Campus courses. So that will continue to be central to our planning and thinking.
Good. That's good. Good to hear. Thank you very much. We also have an exempt item at 11.2. If any members, if you want to ask any questions about the exempt, we can go into private or if that's required. In the meantime, we're on public. Councillor Allard.
Yes, I just wanted to know a little bit on page 346 at 3.4.3. Are we the only one delivering this kind of campus? And what is the interest it is from other local authorities? So are we going to support other local authorities? Are we going to spend some time doing this? So it's going to be more an interaction with other local authorities who will supply, who will follow in our footsteps.
Thank you. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Convener. Apology, I couldn't hear the question. Was it around other local authorities and the involvement of other local authorities? So thank you for the question. Apologies, I couldn't hear. There's a fair bit of work going on outside. So actually our tally is now we've had, and I think it's a sign of, colleagues, fellow officers would know that I'm somebody who likes to take a glass half empty approach and think that we're not as good as we should be, and there's always things we'd like to improve. But the fact that we've had, I think now 10 conversations with different local authorities about different aspects of what we're doing with ABZ Campus suggests that we're doing something right, and our desire is very much that that's a two-way process, because we know very much that there are flaws and there are gaps, and we always want to get the best for our young people. So we will continue with these conversations, and our last one was only a month ago, and the desire is that these partnerships lead to increased equitable outcomes for young people, both for local authority, young people in other local authorities, and for our own as well.
Councillor Allard.
Yeah, I've seen the example of Aberdeenshire and Moray Council. Are we going to go further than this?
Mr. Jones.
Yes, thank you for the question, and through you, Convener. Yes, we've had discussions with Argyll and Bute and also Highland Council in the last couple of months, and again, it's particularly around the virtual opportunities and twilight opportunities, and where there might be chances to work together for the benefit of young people there too.
Thank you very much. So, Vice Convener.
It was on a similar vein. In terms of ABC Campus and everything that's coming through, it's immensely positive work. I think we're all in agreement with that. And we had some conversation earlier about positive destinations and increasing positive destinations and sustaining positive destinations long term. How do we anticipate the ABZ Campus will feed into that work?
So, Mr. Jones.
And again, thank you for the question. I think when we're looking at future plans, I think there's some signs there. If under item or paragraph 3.8.2, there's a real desire to move into the area of work placements. We know from our positive destination data that less young people leave Aberdeen city schools to go on to employment than is the case in other local authorities. And that's something that might be because they haven't had enough work placement opportunities during their time in school. So that's something we want to explore. And then on a similar basis, that there's just that desire to make sure that young people have a basket of qualifications which is complete rather than almost complete. And I think that will also help with our positive destinations information, as will the work of the Pathways Advocate.
Okay, thank you. So can we agree the recommendations there? All agreed. And so in reference to item 11.2, the exempt paper, are we okay with noting that? There's no questions on that, is there? Okay. Okay, then we can move on to 10.9, Ukrainian School Partnership Project. Any questions on this? Or can we just agree it? Agreed. Lovely, thank you. Then we've dealt with 11.1 and 11.2. Bairns Hoos is at 12.1. Thank you to our external members. Many thanks for your participation and particularly for your patience today dealing with our hiccups. Thank you.
That long day.
So moving on to 12.2. Well, we're not stopping. 12.2 is the item on the Bairnshoes.
Convener.
12.1, questions on Bairnshoes. Councillor
Convener.
Blake.
Convener.
Yes.
12.1 is the social work data report. 12.2 is there. So I don't know if you want to.
Well, 12.1, Bairnshoes.
Okay.
Yeah, questions on Bairnshoes at 12.1. So I got the numbers. Councillor Blake, was it on 12.1?
I did have, I've got questions on 12.1 and 12.2, and I apologise. The 12.1, I have to say I really welcome this update, and so it's more of an ask rather than a question. Obviously, the intention is to be operational by the end of the summer, and we all did get to have a visit when it was a building site, and I was just wondering whether we could be invited out for another visit now that it's nearing completion and you're expecting it to be operational at the end of the
Thank
summer.
you, Mr. Simpson.
Thank you, convener. And certainly that's one of the recommendations that I would arrange a visit to the Bairns House prior to the site becoming fully operational. So we anticipate the building be handed back to us on the 4th of July. And then we would probably have 2 weeks of moving furniture in and furnishings in, with a view that then the last 2 weeks of July would be an opportunity for visits to the Bairns House, both of staff from across the partnership to come and see that, to understand how it will work, but also to arrange a time during those 2 weeks for members of this committee to come and see the committee, see the building. I was down last week on a site visit, and certainly the transformation is significant as well. I would also say that we have been lucky, maybe not, with the building company, who have taken very much the intentions of the building and the building to heart itself, and are gifting some trees to for the outside grounds. We have been donated through another tiling company walls of tiles that they can put up at no cost to the council, and we have other companies willing to donate materials and play equipment that we would want as well. So we are in that fortunate position of having this building well received by all who are connected to it.
It's great to hear. It's really heartwarming. Thank you. Councillor Allah.
Yes, thank you very much, Convener. I just, very thankful about, and we did visit the project and it was fantastic. I just wanted to know, because we're going to go through, we are closer to an opening date, how much discretion you want us to bring into any kind of visit or anything that we do.
Thank you. Mr. Simpson.
Thank you, Councillor Allard, and through yourself, convener. Children and young people have told us one of the important facets of this building is its anonymity. So we don't want to make this a big song and dance about it. Yeah, I anticipate and recognise it's right that we as a council mark this and mark it in a way that is respectful of what the intentions of the building are, without it becoming something different around that. So we will work with yourselves and others to think about how do we actually mark the opening of this building in a way. I'm aware that the Minister with responsibility for this portfolio is also keen to visit, but also keen to visit in a very low-key way as well, which is something which we would respect and welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Allah.
Yeah, very good. So we'll keep the selfie out for for this kind of visit. I think it's good that the Minister as well understands the sensibility of the visit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can we agree the recommendations? Yeah, all agreed. Takes us to 12.2, the children's social work statistics. Any questions on 12.2? Councillor Blake.
Thank you, convener. So I've got 3 questions. So I was slightly alarmed by figure 4.1, which was children removed from the Child Protection Register, and in 2023, 2024, we had one removed because they died. It looked almost like we had one each year they died. Is that correct?
Mr. Simpson.
Yes.
Councillor Blake, you had three
Okay.
questions.
Yeah, that was my first question. I was a bit like, oh. So the next part I wanted to pick up was the insight in, there was quite a lot here about kinship carers, and we've talked about this before, and there's obviously an improvement project. There's quite a lot of insight in around kinship carers and the challenges they face and their suggestions in the Scottish Women's Budget Group report. And then we're going to reflect those back into the improvement project.
So certainly thank you, convener, and thank you, Councillor Bate, for your question. Yes, the report that came out 10 days ago or so, I think it was in relation to the Scottish Women's Budget, I think is there. I think it's, to be honest, we are still working through those recommendations, and certainly myself and Michelle Crombie have agreed a time to sit down and really think those through, and how we factor those into our child poverty planning and indeed more broadly around that, but also how do we recognise the role of predominantly women who are taking on that caring responsibility for family members.
Thank you. Back to Councillor Blake.
Yes, I think that would be good, because I hadn't, and this is my entire naivety, not really thought to myself, that these are primarily grannies and aunties that, take on this particular role, and it was interesting to see that the challenges that they face. 3.12, looked after children with a disability. Obviously you're flagging that we're an outlier. Do we have any thoughts about why we're out? Do you think it's to do with better recording, or is any other thoughts about why we're an outlier?
Mr. Simpson.
Convener, through yourself, Councillor Blake, thank you for that. I've probably lots of thoughts. I think the fact that Aberdeen City is the regional, has the regional hospital, and inevitably that actually parents who have a child with complex and sometimes life-limiting needs will choose to live nearer to that hospital to access its services. And we do see some of that. We do see families coming from other parts of the wider Grampian area and regionally to be nearer to the hospital facilities. These children can also require 24-hour care, which can be beyond what families can manage. It's not a lack of love or a lack of care, it's just around the demands of caring for a child with that level of complexity. And sometimes we need to provide that level of care to those children. And as a consequence, I think we have that impact on us as well. I think there is something about recording, and again, we were having this conversation as a professional group yesterday, recognising that actually across our systems there isn't really a defined way of recording disability. Social workers are not medics, they are not qualified to make that assessment, so we're often recording the interpretation of the family members who will identify that self-identification element of that as well. So I think there is, I would accept, a level of inconsistency nationally and probably an inconsistency locally as well.
Thank you very much. Councillor Radley.
Thank you, Convener. Just looking at sort of 3.7, 3.8 and 3.10. So Aberdeen compared to Scotland and our comparator authorities sort of are well below the sort of average on looked after children living at home kinship carers, and quite significantly above in children and young people in residential settings. I just wondered if there's any sort of narrative around that. Why are we such an outlier?
Mr. Simpson.
So, Convener, thank you, and through yourself, you've asked a lovely question at the end in terms of that. I think one of the answers comes from your earlier question on this morning, as it's now the afternoon, this morning, in relation to foster care. And I think that actually we do have an undercapacity of foster care locally and indeed nationally as a result of that as well. and there's no evidence to suggest that actually children placed with independent fostering providers actually have better outcomes than children placed within local fostering provision as well. But clearly our capacity to wrap around children when they are not in local provision is more diminished because of the geography challenges that come about. And therefore, if these placements break down, then inevitably that makes it harder for it to place the same child in another fostering setting as well. It's also a recognition that sometimes there is still a perception that actually external residential provision actually serves these children best. And I'm not saying they don't, but actually the long-term outcomes for these children are still not good. We know that long-term they often struggle to hold employment, they often struggle to hold onto their tenancy and so on and so forth around that as well. So we need to find a way of actually focusing how do we actually prevent children from being accommodated even before they need to even go into foster care? How do we continue to build on the kinship support? How do we need to build on keeping families there? There is always a place for specialist care. There will always be that, and we don't have that the demand locally, or indeed the workforce locally, to meet that need. So we will also need to actually then tap into the majority of the resources which sit in the central belt of the country as well, which then disadvantages that child, enabling to make their return back into the city as well.
Thank you. Can we agree the recommendations? Great. Thank you. That takes us to the end of the meeting. Thank you. And a special thanks to Ms. Okafor for guiding us so ably through the meeting. Thank you. It's been a bumpy ride. Thank you.